traders, TG here. It is November 17th. Hard to remember what day it is since I just came back from Cabo where it was 80 degrees pretty much the whole time, sunshiny, beaches. And then I come back here and we actually got some hail up in Seattle area. So talk about being all over the place as far as the weather goes. But yeah, we'll dive into this, then I'll show you a couple pictures of Cabo, and then we'll look into the markets. And if you guys have any tickers that you want to be looking at, that would be great. I don't have. I well, actually, I'm looking at a lot of crypto names because they've been pulling back and looking for opportunities there. But as usual, if you guys have any questions about who I am, where I come from, and what kind of services I offer, you can come over here to profitpilot.com and to go over to services, and that's where you can get the indicator, the glass, and the alert service. And then over here, we are, one of our newer deals is that we are working with stockcharts.com, and they've helped us launch the Moxie indicator on their platform too. So that's been great. We've seen a lot of purchases over there. A lot of people, Stock Charts has their own giant following, and so we've been seeing some growth there. And then just people like to diversify as far as where they have their charts, because if anything goes wrong with the computers or somebody else's back end, it's good to have a backup like that. We've seen that in the past. So let me show you kind of this. This was a really nice picture. One early morning in Cabo. We, since I wake up early anyway, I'm a morning riser with the stock market. I was going out in the morning, setting up some towels and making sure that we had some nice beach lounge chairs for the day for everybody else that was with us. I was with my wife and her parents. But yeah, check that out. Right over the ocean, amazing colors out there. So that was really cool. And then this is another one. This is overlooking, the whole Cabo Harbor Marina. This is, I think, Baja Brewery, and great beer up there. And what a view! I tell you, we were just starting to see the sunset from there. And then that's my wife Jackie, and lots of boats. There was a lot of activity the week that we were there, so that was pretty fun getting up there and just spending a week in a very, very warm climate. Right now, I'm looking at all the roofs on the houses up here in Washington are covered in frost, so big difference. And then this, I know it probably seems like a media ploy, but I was actually on my computer checking stuff because we had to check out of our hotel at noon and the market closed at 2, but then we had to get on a taxi at 1:30. So I had a very narrow window of time, and I thought, well, if the Wi-Fi reaches, then let's go for it. And so it did. And that's what I was looking at the day that we were leaving. And my wife took a picture of me. She's like, "Yep, you should show this." And I was like, "Yeah, actually on the computer on the beach, checking stocks and communicating with my subscribers." So that was kind of fun. We actually get to work on vacation, and not too shabby when you think about it. All right, so let's dive into everything and see what's going on. Let's see. Let me get the right. Gosh, where is it down here? All right, so the thing I'm looking. There we go. All right, knew it was down there. So the thing I'm looking at is we've been kind of waiting for the market to pull back a bit. I wrote a newsletter the other day, which is where you guys can check out over here, Profit Pilot, and you go over here to home, and you'll see all the newsletters that I write. And you see somewhere, I forget which one it was. I thought it was just recently. And in through here, I was referring to it as the hockey stick move. And one thing that you can see oftentimes when it comes to the markets and just generally how price moves is that you can see that you just kind of get price moving up in a steady fashion. And then all of a sudden, it starts to really kick up. And it's that kick up that it's kind of like FOMO. You're starting to be like, oh my gosh, I was waiting for a pullback, but the pullback never came. And then not only did the pullback never come, price is starting to accelerate. And oh man, I totally missed all this. And that's the FOMO. And it's also a bit of a blow off top. So that's where everybody else is thinking the same thing. Like, oh man, this thing is just not going down. Maybe you're getting a lot of short covering in here because people are trying to go short. And so they finally get out. And so it's like artificial buying because of the short covering. And then it's also that people just want to jump in on the last minute because they're like, oh man, if this thing is really going to pop and I'm going to totally miss out on it. Well, that's what the hockey stick thing is. You can see that price just kept going like this in a nice steady fashion and then suddenly kicked up. A lot of times that is the last the little blow off top exuberant type move, and then it starts to deflate after that, after they have washed the short outs and sucked in people on the long side from their FOMO situation. So that is something I've been looking at and saying, nope, we're not going to get sucked into that. Yes, there was still some good trades underneath the surface, which we've been in and been taking them. But as far as this goes, I mean, it was extremely overbought. You can see that on both the daily and the hourly timeframes. And then you could even see on the hourly that we were having some negative divergence, which I was just waiting for that to kind of kick in and figuring out, okay, when is this going to happen? And at this point, we now have price coming up here to basically a double top. The Moxie indicator is now starting to trade below zero. And then we've gotten on the daily chart, the Moxie indicator fired halfway through the move, which is, for those of you who are familiar, you know this, but for those of you who are still trying to learn the system or, see if you want to purchase it or come into the Moxie ecosphere, what that is it's late. It's delayed. It's like the tail wagging the dog. What we really want, and I'll show you this over here on the hourly, what we really want is we want the Moxie price trigger to fire at or before price really gets going like that. We don't want the Moxie price trigger to follow halfway through the move, because you'll see the move basically started here, and here's the Moxie price trigger. That's delayed. That is the tail wagging the dog. That is price pulling the indicator up. That's what you don't want. And so with that combined with the hockey stick and the negative divergence and just the extension up here on the daily chart, it kept telling me like, at some point we need to let this thing come back down. And I think that's kind of what we're starting to see. Now, ultimately, I do think that price is going to come back down to the daily 50. It's something we see time and time again. It takes time, but ultimately I do think that's where we're going to go. It could be a little bit bumpy, could happen very quickly. But the first thing I am looking for is I want to see price come down to the daily 21. We have not touched the daily 21 since we started moving all the way back here, which is pretty crazy. That is an extreme move, and it just doesn't really last that like that for very long. I mean, if you go back and just look at the S&P, just go back here and you'll see anywhere that it touches the 21, very, very often, very often. Just keep looking around. You'll see it all the time touching the 21 all the way in through there. And then the other thing you'll see is that price often does come back to the 50. Like, how many times does the price come back to the 50, right? Just all the time. And, it needs to touch the 50 before it can really get a big move. It needs to touch the 50 before we can get some big moves like that. And so that's kind of what I'm looking here is ultimately I want to see price come back down to the daily 50. And I think when that happens, then we've got some really good buying that we can do out there. And if we look at the Nasdaq, we're kind of seeing the same thing. I really wouldn't consider this touching of the daily 21. What I would like to then more point out, again, for those who are not familiar with the Moxie indicator, these are some things that I think would really draw you to wanting to pick it up. Notice that price kept going higher. Notice that the Moxie indicator went flat. It is not so much negative divergence, but what it is telling you that despite price going up and up and up and up the way it is, the Moxie indicator, which is trying to communicate to you how much effort and energy or gas is in the tank, is not going up any higher. So it's kind of coasting, but what it's telling you is that price keeps going up on no more energy. And that's something to really kind of keep in mind. And then you'll notice that once it finally broke, that's when also the Moxie indicator really broke and started to come back down. And you could even see that here and through this area on the 15th, the Moxie indicator kept going flat despite price going up. And then we get that also hockey stick maneuver on the NASDAQ. So I'm looking for this thing to be pulling back at some point. Also, if we look at the IWM, we're already starting to see that. And you can see here, the IWM basically just had a solid run. I mean, that was great. It's a very, very solid run. And you can see here, it got way outside of that third ATR on the daily chart. So this was also like, obviously at some point, we're going to need to start pulling back on this. It's just not going to happen that it can keep going up like this. It's unsustainable. And the other thing to note is that what I really like to see, and my kind of trading is now starting to come alive. I think you guys, if you've probably been looking around, you're starting to see that a lot of names are starting to take off. We're not only in a good seasonal time of the year for the market, but the fact that the IWM has broken out after, I don't know, 8-9 months, something like that, just tells me that we basically have everything going. Everything is working. Everything's doing well. All the indexes are moving with it. With the S&P, the Nasdaq new highs. I think the Dow had new highs. The IWM is breaking out. This is good stuff. But you know what? All this was is the first move. All right. So this was really great, very solid, very happy about this. But you know what? It's extended. It got really, really overbought. There's a giant gap between price and the hourly 50, and now we're pulling back. And you could see that through the Moxie indicator, just kept going straight down on the hourly chart. And then you can see price kept getting rejected by the hourly 50, and even the price kept getting underneath the 15-minute 50, and the Moxie indicators were just not telling us anything for strength. And so I'm looking to the IWM. I'm saying, hey, this is what I want to see the SPY and the NASDAQ do. See how price is coming back down to the daily 21? And we'll have to see how much further this thing might want to go. It could also even get to the 21, bounce a little bit, and then come down if it really wants to do that. As a example of that, check out FFTY. Just to kind of show you how tricky this can kind of be, you could see how the FFTY got really overbought back here. And then what did it do? Pulled back to the 21, bounced here, pulled back to the 21 again, made new highs, and then got slammed all the way back down here to the daily 50 and then below the daily 50. Now, as it turns out, and this is why I was talking about the S&P, the NASDAQ, the IWM basically getting to the daily 50. If that happens, this, for the FFTY, was a trampoline move. Price was below the 50, but the Moxie indicator was above 0. So anybody kind of looking into the indicator, this is the whole point. This is the good thing. This is the perks about the Moxie indicator. Is this told you this was a high pressure, high buoyancy type trade. Not only was that a trampoline move, you can even see the move that set us off originally was right here. There's the Moxie price trigger, and then we got a nice move up. So then we've gotten into a double top here, and now we're just going to have to give it some time and wait and see where it wants to go. But I am looking for things to not necessarily weaken, but I want to see a little bit of a refresh. We've had some really good moves in the market. Obviously, some names have really popped up, and I just want to see the markets kind of slow down, roll over a little bit, and test some support. And then we'll kind of have to see where that goes from there. Now, let's get into a couple names. See, you guys are looking at Apple. Nice move today. I've been watching that. As I said, I just got back from Cabo, so I'm trying to get into the swing of things. Not to mention, I got food poisoning on my last day there, so that made the plane ride just oh so great. Thanks, Teresa. But yeah, I had to basically just meditate the whole time on the airplane, just being like, okay, all right, I'm gonna be okay. Just let my stomach do whatever it wants to do. And so let's see. Earnings. We had earnings got out of the way. You can see price did pull back right there into the daily 50. Then we got another move up. And it seems as though price bounced off the daily 50 again. Now, here's the Moxie price trigger on the hourly chart. So that's good. And I think that the sooner thing that we could have seen was right here. This was a trampoline move right there on the 15-minute time frame. Notice that price dipped below an uptrending 15-minute 50 with the Moxie indicator staying above 0. Trampoline move. And then even after that, you could see yesterday the price basically flagged into an uptrending 15-minute 50 again. Moxie indicator up and doing well. So, yep, that looks pretty good. Yeah, it's always a little tough to try and buy something that's so extended right now. But we had a few days to get into this if Apple is kind of what you're looking for. And then, as I said, bounce off the daily 50. You've got a squeeze on the daily chart. So, yeah, Apple's looking pretty good. All right. Then Tesla, of course, I think, Terry, you've probably paid attention to all the news that has been going on. Elon is pushing around with some of the politicians and put up a Twitter poll saying, do you want me to sell part of my stock because of taxation and unrealized gains and stuff? And he said, I will abide by the Twitter poll. And the Twitter poll actually said, yes, we do want you to sell, I think 10% of your stock. And he that basically happened right there. But what I also heard was that news came out later that said that he had already been planning to sell some of his stock going back into like September or October. So kind of some weird things that are going on out there. But whether he was going to or not, him putting out on Twitter was right about there. And go figure, news of Elon selling 10% of his stock is probably going to have other people sell their stock because they don't want to. They know that 10% of his ownership is going to push price down quite a bit. Not to mention, I mean, this thing was just really overbought. I mean, look at this thing, way, way, way outside of that daily 30 ATR. I mean, it's just pretty crazy. I just knew that this thing was not sustainable like this. Now, that being said, it appears as though price has bounced off of the hourly 200. Great, getting a nice move. Looks like it kind of bounced off the 15-minute 50. You can even see price down or maybe price level, and you can see the Moxie indicator up like that. There is your positive divergence. Now, for me, if I wanted to get into this thing, I'm going to have to wait a little bit longer because here the hourly Moxie indicator is below zero and price is trying to move up across a down trending hourly 50. So I personally am going to give it a little bit of time because I don't think it's set up on the hourly chart. Yes, there was a bounce off the hourly 200. Yes, there was a setup on the 15. But for me, I like to at least have this set up on the hourly chart. So need a little bit more time. Let's see. AWAY. This is the tech travel ETF. Now, I've been watching this for a while. I was shorting Uber partly because of this. Uber and Lyft are in here, and I was shorting it because right here, price was running into the daily 200, and there's a gap between price and the daily 50. So I figured that right in through here was a good place to short Uber, and Lyft would have been the better one to short, as it turns out. But we still got our money, and the trade still worked out. After that, I figured this was a trampoline move right here. So price below the 50, the Moxie indicator above zero, and there was a move. So that worked out. It kind of came out of the blue. There really wasn't an exact setup that I could see, but the basis of the setup did work. You could see prices leveling out, and the Moxie indicator was moving up. I just couldn't exactly see a trigger until you got these two pops like that. Okay, fine. Well, at that point, there's nothing you can do about it because it's pretty extended. I don't want to be buying it up here. I don't want to be buying it up here either. And so I was waiting for price to pull back, but ever since price started pulling back, it just never stopped. So I never found an opportunity to get into this thing either. So it has just been a mess. I mean, really, look at this thing, just all over the place inside of this box, and there hasn't been a trend. It has not been holding any moving averages. It popped out of nowhere. It's been following the 15-minute 50 down. So far, there's just kind of nothing to do here. So I'm keeping an eye on it, but man, not much going on. Same with if we talk about Uber. I'm looking at this trampoline move on the daily chart. Right here, we should see price below the 50, the Moxie indicator above zero. I should be seeing this thing resolve to the upside. You can even see there's your double bottom, there's your positive divergence. But what I needed to wait for is I need to see if price is ever going to actually hold the hourly 50. Now, it might be starting to happen soon, but we need to keep waiting and watching and seeing if that's going to happen. So I'm still kind of waiting a little bit on Uber. I wanted to look at Lyft next because it's been all over the place. I think Lyft seems almost like the thing that is moving that ETF away all over the place. You can see that Lyft actually looks more like the ETF away than anything else. And so just not much to do here as it just kind of keeps bouncing all over the place. So yeah, not much going on there. So, all right, then let's see. Facebook is also pretty much chopping around. It bounced off of its daily 200. Um, People were asking me right in through here what to do, and the only thing I could say was right here, price was most likely going to get rejected by the 200, and then what I want to see is price hold the 50 right there, and that worked. But then we started to get kind of this oscillation through here, which is pretty typical as price tries to get past a downtrending daily 50. So there's not much of a trend yet. What I really want to see is price get over that 50 and actually hold. But if we're trying to talk about these things starting to turn to the upside, what you'll notice is the hourly 200 has gone from a downtrend to basically flat to hopefully the next thing is an uptrend. The other thing you'll notice is that the 50 has crossed over the 200. So if this is going to continue to work out, we should see the 50 stay over the 200. We should see the 200 starting to angle up. So just kind of keep watching that and see if that works. Do understand, as you're seeing, that there is going to be a lot of volatility as price tries to get past this moving average and changes its direction. Now, that all assumes if price is going to continue actually moving up to the upside and this thing is going to resolve, then it'll keep doing that. But the other thing you need to remember is that this could be resistance. That daily 50 could be resistance, and the Moxie indicator is below zero. So just in case this thing does not work out and it actually starts to roll over like this, just understand it's because it ran right into a downtrending daily 50 with the Moxie indicator below zero. So we have to kind of keep both things in mind and see what we can do about that. Let's see, Netflix. Yeah, it seems fine. Probably just probably needs to chill out for a little bit. You can see here it did get a little bit below the 21, whereas before it was exactly to the 21. So it might need to chill out a little bit. I also tend to like to see price engage with the hourly 50, which it has not yet. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a bit of a pullback. And ultimately, it might just start doing a bit of a flag here on the daily charts. So yeah, kind of keep an eye on that one, but I wouldn't be surprised if it needs a bit of a rest. Same thing with AMD. You know, this thing's been an absolute beast leading up to earnings and then after earnings. Boy, it's getting extended. Sure seems like it's getting extended to me. You know, how long can it be running up here along that 8 and that third ATR? And then we might be seeing a double top and some negative divergence. Of course, we won't know until price actually goes the other direction if that's the case. But, you know, I am seeing the indexes slow down a little bit, and something like AMD has had an absolutely insane move. And so take your profits while you can. Just know that at some point when things get too high, they do they do tend to pull back at some point. I think Nvidia is kind of a good example of that. You know, you can see that anytime that we get too extended, it does pull back. Then third ATR and it pulled back, and yep, it's way up there. It's way, 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 way up there. Now take your guess on whatever happens with earnings. Okay, sure, it could go higher on earnings. Okay, but you know, it could also be buy the rumor, sell the news type stuff, and just understand that just from a technical standpoint, it is pretty darn high up there, and I think it's at more risk of going down than up. That's just kind of my 2 cents. Kind of speaking of moves like that, Lucid. So it looks like we did the right thing this morning. We did sell about half of our gains on this. So with Lucid, I was a little slow on the entry. You can even see that there was the Moxie price trigger right there in the hourly. I mean, this thing was pretty much a perfect setup, and I was just being slow about it. But you can see there was the Moxie price trigger on the daily, and then there was the Moxie price trigger on the hourly. And then they had their first vehicle come out. That was this big push right here. It became overbought, so I waited for it to come back and go sideways, which we got in right there. And now we got up here, waited till after earnings. I did think that there was probably going to be some good news on that, and it did go up. And so we sold at 50, like a 50% gain. Fantastic. But you know what? Just like AMD and Nvidia, what is this thing doing? Way, way, way outside of that third ATR. You can see the last 2 times that it got outside of that, it pulled back. Now, I'm not over and done with Lucid. I think that there's more, but I also think that it's going to pull back, which, case in point, it's doing that exactly. But notice, you know, every time it's kind of got extended like that, it's pulled back. So I'm going to keep an eye on this thing and see where it's going to pull back to, and we can add a little bit more. The other thing to note is look left. If you look left, where is it? It's right pretty much at the double top. You know, that's going to be some resistance up there. Not to mention, I mean, this thing has just had an incredible move. So right from, you know, the beginning of this to this, I mean, it went 120%. We caught 50% of that. So yeah, they just need to chill out for a little bit. All right, Overstock. Also probably needs to chill out a bit. So I'm seeing, you know, basically double top, and I'm also seeing some negative divergence. Okay. And it seems awfully far away from the daily 50. I view Overstock as more of a crypto play rather than its actual company, what it is. But they did come out with news, I think, on their earnings report saying that they won't have any problems with the holiday season and some of the delays and backups that a lot of other companies have been talking about as far as merchandise. So I think that was really what helped push them up. That being said, yeah, I think it could use a bit of a pullback. I would like to look for a pullback in order to get in, and we'll kind of see about that because if you look left, once again, you know, where is it? It's running right into some previous resistance. So just don't be surprised if Overstock wants to pull back, and if it does, then I'd be looking for places to get in on it. Let's see, play Dave and Buster's. Yeah, I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Let me look up here on the weekly. You know, I've been watching some of these things. I've been trying to watch the airlines, cruise lines, some of the reopening trades, you know, like Yelp and hotels and SeaWorld, the casinos, and I just have not had a very clear picture of what's happening with them. But if Dave and Buster's wants to go, well, then it seems like it's holding the weekly 21, so that's good. And it seems also that the 8 is trying to cross over the 21, trying to get on top of the 21. So that could be good, but boy, that sure is neutral right there on that weekly time frame. And if we look at the daily and the hourly, it's been kind of tough in through here. Basically, I look at this as the 50, 200, 50 maneuver, so that's good. But then we're trying to see, okay, well, is price going to really hold the 50? Yes, the Moxie indicator is above zero, and we've got a squeeze. So there are some good things that are building here. We can kind of have the price like that, the Moxie indicator like this, and um, just hasn't really broken out, and I don't know what it's going to do quite yet. Right and through here, you can see that there was some positive divergence on the 15, but ultimately, for me, what I like to see is price engage with the hourly 50. So, yes, price is over the hourly 50, but the hourly 50 is kind of still angled down. Eventually, what I want to see is I want to see price kind of do like this, and I want to see the 50 go with it. So, I want to see price go in the same direction of the 50. And the fact that it's not, that tells me I should wait just a little bit longer. I kind of want to see it like this. I think this is a good example. You can see here how price was up over a downtrending 50. I want to see price actually engage with the 50 like that. So probably need a little bit more time. And yeah, Rivian, so another big EV truck maker and all that. I think they're basically partially owned by Amazon. I don't normally trade IPOs. Came out here, actually just went straight up, so pretty good move. I don't have much guidance from that. The only thing I could really say was it happened to follow the hourly 8 EMA pretty well until third ATR, it seems like. And then on the 15, it followed the 15-minute 50 pretty well until today pulled back. So I don't know. I like to give these things some time because there's just not enough stuff for me to be able to look at and analyze. That's just too new in order to even figure out any trends and patterns. Maybe the other thing I could point out was that there was a gap here between price and the 8 EMA on the daily chart, but it's just so new. I don't have enough data to really work with. So I do tend to stay away from these, but I am happy to see that these EV sectors are going up and doing pretty well. Austin, good to hear from you. Let's see. NRDS. Um, NerdWallet IPO this month. Okay. Well, I will write that one down. But again, still kind of new. It kind of reminds me of Coin when it first came out. It got pretty wrecked for a while until it started moving back up. So just be careful with the IPOs. If they come out strong, I also see them pull back, and if they come out and pull back a lot, just give it time. This is what I have to wait for. And what you could see, where the good trade was, is here is the Moxie price trigger. Again, if you reference this to what I was talking about with the S&P earlier, you want the Moxie price trigger to trigger before or at the same time of price moving. And this right here was a good move. And then you can see right there, price pulled back into the hourly 50 and then shot up. That was a good move. That was price testing the moving average. And that was a bit of a trampoline move because price was just below the hourly 50 with the Moxie indicator above zero. That is a good situation. Troutfly, what is my process of developing my watch list and daily scan? Well, I've kind of just built my watch list over the course of time about names that seem to trade smoothly or move smoothly, names that give me a variety of exposure to different sectors so I can kind of see what's going on in all different parts of the economy. And then names that are well known. Of course, I have the Airbnbs, the Dash, the AMDs, the Nvidias. Like I got all the big names, right? You want to make sure that you're trading when a lot of other people are trading. And then otherwise, as far as my daily scans, I like to trade or I like to scan for abnormal volume because if there's a lot of volume coming into it, you kind of want to know it. What you'll notice with abnormal volume though is it's also a lot of down days because when something goes down hard, it's gonna be a lot of volume as people are just getting the hell out of that thing. And then I've got my scans for the Moxie indicator. So I scan for the daily Moxie price trigger or the hourly Moxie price trigger. And then I also scan for trampoline moves. And you can see here the trampoline moves when price is below the 50, but the Moxie indicator is above zero. And same thing here, price below the 50, but the Moxie indicator above zero. So I've got 4 different ways to scan that usually makes it so I don't miss something. If something is going to set up, I will see it eventually. between all of these different scans. So if you're interested in that, come on over to the Moxie. Let me just show you this. But you can come over to the Moxie website. You can come over here. You can become a subscriber to the room. I put out all sorts of videos and weekly reviews, lots of education. And if you're interested in actually picking up any of the classes to learn how to iTrade and how to trade using the tool, that's where you can come over here and you can pick it up any of these classes that I have here. And then again, if you guys want to diversify, we do have the indicator also on stockcharts.com. So thanks again for everybody tuning in. I know there's a ton of names I did not get into. Obviously, I'm seeing a whole bunch more names pop up, but I did what I could to today and save them for next week. We'll chat then. And if you have more questions, if you guys are part of the Moxie subscription, you can just chat with me in the chat room and I can answer any questions there. So thanks again, guys. Talk to you soon.